Hey folks, Steve here with another Axis Empires Ultimate Edition Daisenso 1944 Defined Wind Campaign with Schiff's Creek video. We are now in summer of 45, which means, really, we're kind of at the end, more or less. So, as things are kind of winding down to a logical endpoint, the Allies have managed to turn it on to Allied Crusade. We are at one victory point. We are at the threshold to hit two if we get one more strategic hex, which I have to imagine that we will. And then we just need four more, but actually just a couple more because we already have two devastation markers in Japan. We have the capability to get two more from atomic weapon successes in the later part of the game. Though there's a chance that something could happen that could keep us from doing that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about it. I'll have to check the sort of order of operations if it occurs. I'm not sure that it will. And then finally, technically, I still have an Allied bomber. I had, during a European commitment event earlier in the game, the British brought in their bomber. Now, at the time, I was thinking, I'm like, well, if for some reason I can't reach a particular strategic hex, and I could, pick any one I want, Saigon or otherwise. If I can't get there, if I don't think I'm going to get there in time, I'll bomb it. And I could potentially, very easily at this point now, get some British bombers in range of the home islands and probably bomb a place that I haven't bombed yet. And so I could get basically three more strategic hexes from devastation markers. So, you add in the three more than we already have. So that's five. That alone would push us into a victory state at 3 victory points. And I'm still going to get Rangoon. I mean, it's a foregone conclusion we're going to get Rangoon. We're probably still going to get Saigon. So it just, in terms of all the way that this is going to probably shake out, I would certainly expect an Allied victory. And as I look around the turn track, just to get a look at, yeah, it could still be, when I look all around the map, like, we could still see failures to drop those bombs. I'm going to have to be pretty diligent in forcing the issue. The Japanese still have, importantly, they still have a scratch fleet that they can use, and all things considered, attritionally, it wouldn't survive long, but due to the Tengo plan marker, they can kind of just, they can kind of do things on the cheap if they have to. But they don't, their markers are we're at the point in the game now where in the delay segment, very often the Axis markers are going to go off the turn track into areas that are after the game ends. So there's really not, anything that the Japanese are using right now are likely not to see the game again once they're used. So a lot of different options there, and all that thing about bombing, logistically, there's a little bit of a challenge in working out how we would get in there. We can also still try to pick up Iwo Jima. That is an option that we have to work with. And so there's almost nothing that the Japanese can do to stop what's going to happen. But we'll play it through just for the fun of it and see what happens. So yeah, Iwo Jima, we could see Hong Kong recaptured. We could see Shanghai captured. Those are all kind of under threat with Okinawa under our control. Lots to see and do here. We might even just try for Iwo Jima just to kind of make that a nice complete control of the islands outside of Japan, and make it at least a little more exciting. See what happens with our combats. Um, yeah, so we're gonna play it through, guys. Now there's not much to talk about in terms of the options cards. A lot of these are straightforward. The Japanese have the capability to put some colonial troops down, which, maybe at this stage in the game, it can help them plop a couple of steps in Burma or China or something. I'm gonna have to double check placement locations. And then the card for spring is going to be Peace Offer, and we'll talk more about that when we get closer. But that's sort of like the end stage of the game. Um, the Soviets have War Progress 5, which we did reach the Victory in Europe Day marker, so we really don't need to apply ESV. We can apply European Commitment, which will just get more units for the Soviets somewhere on the board and some additional stuff, which that's always nice. Um, with their pending card being a red banner offensive, so just assuming that we're going to operate and be attacking the Japanese by then. Probably will be. The Blitz marker will be important because it's going to help us get into Harbin. That's kind of a key. I didn't talk about the Soviets. Soviets can pick up a few strategic hexes as well. So we're very likely to be outperforming history as the Allies. And I would owe that to some pretty reasonable luck in a lot of our island invasions that really could have gone south on us. So I don't know. I mean, it feels like the Japanese really haven't counterattacked much. They have limited capability to do so. Most of the time that the Allies have had dicey combats, they've gotten lucky and only rolled poorly when it was overwhelming odds anyway, and they succeeded in what they needed to succeed at. Like, when we took Davao, there was like a bad die roll, but it didn't really matter because the odds were so high that it didn't matter. So I'd say the bend of luck has really been on the Allied side. But both sides were rolling, reasonably well in a lot of combats. So it's kind of a mixture there. But it's funny. So and this is nice. I like this because it helps make it so that your dice, if you've got funny dice, it doesn't really matter. Um, Someone's using cheater dice. The naval system, you want high die rolls basically, and in land combat you want low rolls. So that's a nice difference. Some people would want it to all be like the same, but I think it's good to have that bit of difference so that you can, I don't know, it accounts for weird dice things, because you know what, it's true. There are people out there who use cheater dice. I know they exist. They're out there. Don't say they're not. Okay, so uh, the Americans. I guess I should talk about their card, or the Western Allies. We have Operation Oboe. That gives us some nice blitz markers we're going to enjoy for the summer, which will be needed. And then we're going to get some additional steps, not a huge number, mind you. And that's probably the one thing that sticks out to me the most in this is how few steps the Allies actually get. Our next card for the spring will be that Manhattan Project, so we'll get some stuff. But then our posture should be war, unless something else happens with that peace offer. And we'll apply Project Success A-Bomb, and we'll get to do that across 2 turns. So two bombs that will further devastate Japan and give us strategic hexes for final victory counting, not initial victory counting. So this is why we're not counting the devastation markers in Japan right now. We only count them at the end, which is why it's Allied Crusade 1 VP right now. At the end of the game, we will count those, and that will give us the final tally. So just what that does is the immediate effect of devastation is not felt on things like delay DRMs and that sort of thing. So just, it makes sense. It makes sense to me. So those are the cards, pretty straightforward ones. The Japanese at this point, the best they can really do. I've got a huge dead pile of Japanese on their force card right now. The best they can do maybe try to shift some units around, maybe try to get some of those colonial units somewhere valuable. What we're probably going to try to do is ship this guy to Saigon because he's not really doing anything in Surabaya any longer. Really, no point for him to be there. He's there with a detachment, so he had retreated. Part of the force that retreated out of Batavia. We'll try to ship him to Saigon so that the British have to attack something to get into Saigon. Um, and we're probably going to shift some Japanese forces into Hong Kong. We're probably going to try to figure out a way to get units into Shanghai, some additional defense. Because really, at this point, it's all like, okay, if I don't need steps here, right? If there's not a reason to have a step here to defend a strategy hex, I don't need it where it is. So here, the nearest set of strategic hexes are here and here. So really, these guys fighting, them being there is only good for space to keep units away from the strategic hexes, but I can afford to slide a couple around. Here, there's more offensive capability, so I can't really afford to pull back the northern Japanese forces much. I can probably slide 1 or 2 units into maybe a slightly different configuration. But then, against Russia, we really don't have very many options. So that's kind of how things are playing out right now. Just, where can we try to set our defense and just wait for the hammer to drop? Which I can imagine in a campaign game maybe isn't so bad because you've had your fun, you're letting the Allies have their fun. And this 1944 campaign, as the Japanese, you're probably not having a lot of fun. Like, it's fun for me to play through the whole thing, but I can imagine this scenario being a bit frustrating as the Japanese because you really don't have much to do. That's probably why most 1944 campaigns in Grand Strategic World War II games get played the least, I would bet. I would bet that's the case. But it's all fun. It's all good. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to start playing through here. We're going to try to hit all 5 of the remaining turns in this video. So this will be the last action, report video. And then I'll probably do a video follow-up that is a post-mortem talking about Schiffskrieg and Daisenso kind of collectively. And I will not do a review. I have more Axis Empire stuff planned even after this campaign that I will get to. It may be I may need to take a break for a little bit, but I'll come back and I'll do some interesting things with the system in the near term. I should also point out that if you're watching this video, you're probably going to want to be watching the new Axis Empires video series that's being posted by Bridger. I forget the name of his YouTube channel, but he's Bridger on Board Game Geek. He just started publishing a 1937 with Schiffskrieg combined game solo campaign that he's going to be recording in Vassal and posting, and I'm going to be watching that just because I think it'll be interesting to see his playthrough and the decisions that he makes. He's also a very good person to listen to in terms of watching somebody play a game in Vassal, because he moves very quickly, but he also does a pretty good job of explaining what's going on. So you get a lot of, I guess, value content per minute, where I probably am pretty bad about that. I'm sorry, guys. He's really quite good. So maybe I'll get a link in the description to Bridger's YouTube channel. But give that a shot. This might be a nice companion to what he's doing, where he's taking it from all the way from 37 onward. Anyway, we'll get started here with the May-June turn for the Japanese. I should also point out that weather is really kind of a bummer, in that during summer we're going to have a lot of the central area have mud, which is really all the parts of China where we would be wanting to make big gains here. And actually, come to think of it, that may inhibit us from moving units around the way we would want. So that's a problem. It also affects how much we can do with the Americans, because while they can potentially get a beachhead started, the mud in China is going to make any attacks into Hong Kong or Shanghai and so on much more difficult. And that's going to follow through all of summer. So we actually, there's basically a very valid reason why we're not going to make a whole lot of progress if we try to jump into China. We would kind of, I guess, have to try harder in spring, or I'm sorry, fall, and there's only those last two turns of the game. So we might have to save any Shanghai or Hong Kong attacks as the Americans until fall. That gives the Japanese some relief in China, maybe. So we'll have to watch that for both sides. For Japan, this limits their ability to exit ZOX because of the mud, which means they may not be able to shift much around at all. So kind of a problem, generally speaking. So I'll need to double check. I'll need to double check those things, but I think that'll be the case. So anyway, we'll come back here at the end of the May-June turn, talk about what happened, and then we'll be leading into the June-July turn. Okay, here we are after that first summer turn. The British are in Rangoon. They are pushing the Japanese back into Siam. And at this point, we should expect to continue to bash our way through, though we took some step losses. What I do want to be able to do is push through here, send a unit down to relieve Singapore just so we have better basing in the nearby area. We do have the British fleet operating out of Batavia right now. And we did ship British units into Taiwan so that we have a capability to use our British bombing capability. The real question will be, where do we try? What's interesting is I think I'm going to have to look this up if I can I devastate my own strategic hexes? I think I can't or something. I don't know. I'm going to have to look at that. But basically, I had spent the turn getting the British Air Force in line, basically to sorry, my mind is blanking a bit. To be able to do what we need to do here. I think I meant to. That was the talk on that. Yeah, there's a whole sequence network of actions here to get us situated, and at this point we should be. I'm a little worried. No, I should be okay. Getting things situated where we have really what we need to operate, and shipping units, getting things where they need to be, all good for the British. That's for bombing. For the Americans, not much. We did launch an invasion of Iwo Jima, so we have units that are set up now. I didn't have the sea lift due to being low on support markers for escorts, that I was not able to, I did not try to attack Iwo Jima. But we do have a CV strike over it. We fended off Japanese planes, and it took a couple of flotillas to do it, but we were able to do it. And now we're simply trying to fight our way onto the beaches. We'll continue that into the summer here while we prepare other things. The weather will continue to hold, the weather is getting crappy, I should say, for the British over here, so that may be an impact to how much progress we get. I'm a little worried about that. But generally elsewhere, things are proceeding, and, again, I think we're getting prepared for the end state. The Russians are pulling some airplanes from the European theater onto the board, so things are just kind of building up for the final run. The Japanese have an air unit and a fleet marker as support units right now. Not a whole lot they can do with them but defend, so they're kind of hoping to hold together their defensive capability to defend the home islands or defend against bombing. That's really all they can hope to achieve at this point. There's really no way for them to use their markers on the offensive due to the kamikaze marker that's still in play. They do have a scratch convoy, so they could conceivably try to move something around, but there's really not much capability to do that. They're defending, again, in those strategic hexes I mentioned before. So, yeah, really a question of just where do things head next? The beachhead is at Iwo Jima, so no direct expectation that the homeland, the home islands will be attacked. So, you know, not a super eventful summer turn, but all of these things are just sort of flowing. So I'll get into the next turn, and we'll see what happens. Okay, here we are at the start of the July-August turn of summer. Um, the mud has slowed down the British advance in Siam. So you know, we're gonna have to you know, get them on the next turn, but we're set up to absorb an armor step, get kind of, you know, well situated to smash through, and then, you know, ideally in the fall we should be able to get to Saigon and pick that strategic hex up. So kind of a slow go, but we're now even getting to the point where um, we can start to use our naval air assets through the Java Sea to um, support activities. The Americans have taken Iwo Jima with, importantly, a die roll of 1. So I feel like most of these amphibious invasions, I just had I rolled a 6, right, we'd be in a different situation. I keep rolling low on the first round, and then the second round I rolled crappy, but the odds due to the blitz marker, the second, you know, the blitz combat went okay, right? We got the 1, took out a bunch of steps. The second regular combat, the odds were so high, even when I rolled a 5, it didn't really matter. So we've taken Iwo Jima, and now it's getting kind of picky. Where else are we going to go? And right now we have, you know, if you know, when we check the strategic situation at the beginning of fall, at the end of this next turn, we will find that at least right now it's -6 strategic level, meaning it's 2 VP Allied Crusade. We're 3 away from victory. When you add in the 2 devastations we already got, we only need one more strategic hex. So is it going to be Saigon? Are we going to get actually, I forgot. I forgot to do my bombing run as the Commonwealth, in which case we're going to do that. And right now, the Japanese don't have any markers to defend against this. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Boom. That's kind of victory right there already, right? So 3 devastation markers in Japan. That's going to be 3 strategic hexes plus the status of 6 that we're already at. That's going to get us to 3 VP Allied Crusade. So at this point, I'm just playing through the last couple of turns because I want to see how the rest of the Russian entry and the campaigns and into China go. So we want to ramp up that victory as much as possible, just for, I guess, prestige at this point. So yeah, let me play through this last summer turn. We'll talk about the fall. I do want to make sure I play the Manhattan Project cards. I'd like to see if there's any gotchas there with the peace offer cards. So the game is kind of determined. This will be an Allied victory, owing much to the luck of my amphibious invasions. I think every single first round of naval invasion combat, I rolled low, and then the second die rolls never really mattered because the odds were so good. So funny how that works. You know, a string of good luck has certainly helped the Allied cause this campaign. But as I look at the rest of the mechanics, I want to test out everything else. I want to see how the other cards work and how things kind of wrap up. So I'm going to keep playing through the last couple of turns here, last few turns. So last turn of summer coming up, and we'll show the beginning of autumn, the beginning of fall, right after this cut. Okay, here we are now that what will begin the last season of the game, the beginning of autumn. Unfortunately, the mud on the Asian continent has kind of slowed us down. We're outside of, let's see, what is it? Bangkok, yeah. We're outside of Bangkok. The British are trying to force their way through, but the weather really is just hurting them. They can't deploy air resources. They can't deploy a CV strike. So it's just kind of hard fighting. We're not necessarily getting in there right away. just the North Monsoon Zone, and really the weather's not going to clear until the last turn of the game, basically. So um, I'm a little worried that we're not actually going to get into Saigon, but we'll see. I mean, I just didn't get a good die roll on the attack here. It was kind of attritional, so I don't get perfect luck as the Allies, so we're getting bogged down a bit. We did clear Guam, if only because I was annoyed by it, and I cleared a remnant hex that's been out of supply, hunkered down in the Solomons just because I could. Um, and I ended up using up a whole bunch of air power to take Guam, but I just, at this point, I don't think I'm going to try to invade the home islands. There's the Japanese are going to have a couple. I'll put it this way: the Japanese will have some capability to defend themselves, both from air and sea attacks, and landing is probably going to be, a pain in the butt. But the reality is going to be, I can push as hard as I want. I'm probably not going to grab any strategic hexes in Japan proper. Um, with allied units at this point, I really don't see the utility in trying. It's probably just going to be more wasted effort. So I'm happy to let that go. We've got 3 devastation markers in Japan as it is, and again, we're waiting for the atomic drops that are going to happen. Because the 3 devastation markers are already there, there's no way the Allies are going to lose at this point now. We are, the VP track is at 2 Allied Crusade with a total of -6 strategic value. At the end, when we count the devastation markers, that will bring us to 3 victory points and the victory. So it's really just, we're just cheesing our way through here now. Just can we pick up any others for prestige? And this is before the Russians are going to come in, and I expect that the Russians should be able to grab at least a couple more strategic hexes based on die rolls that could make it even higher. I don't know that we're going to get to 4 victory points, but we will be solidly in the 3 VP stage. So, not much to be said here. I'm starting to get lackadaisical with my naval stacking. I'm just kind of throwing them all around truck. Because at this point, when I form a task force, I just pick up a few units, whatever I need based on the die roll, and there's really not much to report back on. The remnant fleet of the Japanese are still there for the scratch fleet purposes. The Japanese will have some in the last season here, or at least this next turn. They have an air unit. They've got some scratch convoys. There's not much to do with the scratch convoys. There's not even much to do with the air unit other than try to fend off any other American incursions someplace. But again, the Americans can kind of rest easy. They've already taken all the islands adjacent to the home islands of Japan. Iwo Jima, Okinawa, Guam, Saipan, Formosa even. The Philippines are liberated. The Dutch East Indies are liberated. There's still a holdout detachment here that's kind of there for no really good purpose. Same thing with Singapore. It's just there to keep the British from getting it. The British are going to try to relieve it by the end just to say that they did it, potentially. And, really there's not much more than that at this point. And we can kind of slow roll it. And really it's just to see what damage the Russians can do and how these last couple of cards are going to be played. So just showing you this end result. The Allies really truly have command of the seas. So I'm moving my convoys around, I'm moving ships around, kind of at will. There's not much. The final defensive perimeter is really just the coast of Japan. And again, why send all these American lives invading the home islands? We don't need to. We're hearing promising things from the Manhattan Project. We'll see, and the Soviets are going to grab what they can. So let me do a cut here. I'm going to prepare the cards now for the final season, autumn 1945. All right, so let's talk cards for a second. This is the Japanese card we're going to be playing, Peace Offer. But I'm going to be honest, if I wasn't sticking to the idea that I was mostly just going to use the historical cards, I don't see a point in playing this. Now, I could see where this would be valuable to play in the historical situation because, let's say, well, actually, I'm not even sure about that. So here's the deal. around this time frame in the historical storyboard, the Allies would be about where we are today with Allied Crusade 2. We also know that the political DRM has an additional -2 from the U.S. commitment level, which has a -4 to the die roll. Total political DRMs. What is not clear to me here is why, even in the historical storyboard, it would be of value to try to play this. So a couple of things. Option card segment, the government marker gets put in the holding box. Okay, we did, or placed in the delay box. We did that. When that marker comes off the turn track, then you roll a die. Well, the game's going to be over by the time this occurs, because there's going to be delayed die roll modifiers on the marker, and it's not going to make a difference. The political event segment, however, you say, okay, well, look at the results here. Now, if we were, let's say this was middle of the war, the Axis was at a high tide, had a +2, and then maybe even with U.S. commitment level at a so-so level, you would have a decent chance of maybe getting a 4 or 5 result, and then the Axis could put a truce marker on the board, and that would basically delay the Allies by a turn or two, and might buy the Japanese enough time to hold on to victory and not see any changes to the victory marker location. But here's the problem. Even in the historical narrative, which, this the idea is this was the historical card played, was peace offer at this time in autumn 1945. The U.S. commitment level -2. The Allied Crusade is 2 victory points, so another -2. If you rolled a 6, -4, you're going to get a 2, which is political option Western, and in which case it's the Western player who decides what to do with it. And I don't think there's any reason why they would ask for a truce unless the Japanese were close to maybe getting another victory hex or something, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Any other result is going to be a no result. So, what's the point of playing this card? Even in the historical storyboard, I guess I wonder what's the point in playing this card, because it wouldn't really do anything, right? You're just going to get a no result, or the Western powers will get it, and they'll choose something that doesn't apply a truce, right? The best that I can tell, anyway, is that the faction that received this event may do one of the following. And at least the way that I read this card, right, it's political option Western, right? Political option Western. So the Western player gets to apply the political option, and there's no requirement that it applies a truce. So there's really nothing, as far as I can tell, there's really nothing good that can come from this as the Japanese. I don't understand how it's of any value. Now, if I said, well, let's have played a different card, and we would have had to have decided this back at the beginning of summer, well, maybe you'd be trying to play one of these cards. Now, they might provide some steps. I think this is probably one of the better ones to look at. So it's you place an HQ in Japan, and then you get some steps. So we put those home defense markers in, and other bad stuff can happen. So it's sort of like this is you're expecting the Allies to invade the home islands. You'd be wanting to play this card if you thought that was going to happen. None of the other cards left in the deck of our options are particularly good for our circumstances. So there's really no, and I'm not going to invade the home islands as the Allies at this point. So even playing that card doesn't do any good. There's really no good card for the Japanese to be able to have played this time. Even if I allowed myself to go back and retroactively change my card, there's really nothing good. I still am puzzled by the peace offer here. Even in the historical storyboard, I don't see how this card would be valuable at all. Period. I don't understand how you would get to something that allows you to get something good out of that card. And maybe I'm missing something else. I don't know. But again, the die roll modifiers just make it such that um, nothing good can come of it. So I don't know. And you can just say, well, that was the historical thing, Steve. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to apply very closely, or it could even be a bad play. And okay, sure, but there has to be some incentive for the historical actor to have picked it for for somebody playing the game to slide into the same mentality. So that's a little weird. I kind of want to ask somebody. Maybe I'll ask Tom about it. Be like, Tom, help me understand. What's your thoughts on it? But in any case, we'll be playing those cards, right? So we are playing Peace Offer. We're going to roll that die. It's going to be right now a -4, and we get a no result. So nothing happens with the Peace Offer. We'll do that same die roll on the next turn. To be honest, there's not much for the Japanese to do at this point. Very very little that's going to affect the outcome of the game. The best thing that they could hope to achieve is maybe, and this would try to delay the strategic markers. They might try to flip this to a one-stepper and then try to scratch Convoy, move one of these guys up to this hex where we have the Russians about to attack. We could do that, and just say, well, if the Americans are kind of done, then let's try to make something happen, right? Let's go ahead and grab what we can grab, defend what we can defend, and that's as much as we can hope for. And that's really it for the Japanese turn. Like, there's really nothing left to do here, guys. We've held on as much as we can hold on. The war is going to ramp down. If I just said that's it and we flipped it over to the Americans, what do we get? European commitment. What would we want to pull in? There's not much to pull in. I'd maybe pull in a surface fleet. I'm not even going to bother to do that at this point. British get one step. Americans get one step. And even at this point, it's like, okay, I'm gonna chuck a Philippine step into the Philippines. Britain, I don't know. Get a Indian step maybe in Calcutta. We'll ship that somewhere. And conditional event segment. This is really the one that matters, I guess. If U.S. posture is war, apply project success A-bomb. So we'll do that, right? 3732. If the U.S. is not a truce-affected country, and it is not, the Western faction may place one atomic devastation marker in any land hex within 9 hexes of a U.S. airbase. The hex cannot be a neutral minor country. This placement cannot be contested. So there is no hope to stop this. When we place it, we may select one enemy ground unit, a detachment or logistics marker in the hex and eliminate it. A unit or marker with a delay strike goes to the delay box, otherwise goes to the force bolt. So this is just a freebie devastation marker, which is effectively a freebie strategic hex. So here's your A-bomb. 9 hexes from Okinawa. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's Nagasaki, and here's Hiroshima. I don't know. Boom. Boom. Devastation marker. And yes, the devastation marker icon is different than the regular devastation marker. So there's your mushroom cloud. Boom. Nagasaki. Just picking one. And then next turn, because this is happening during the conditional events, and the Americans don't do anything else, right? We just say we're not taking any other action. We don't need to. We don't have to do anything but sit back and wait for this to be over. We'll get another A-bomb that will drop. on the next turn, and I'm just going to place it right now because at this point, there, boom, boom, those are going to happen. 5 devastation markers in Japan. Tons of bombing. That's going to be a big deal. So then, if we just say, hey, that's it for the Americans, we're letting it ride, man. We're done. We did everything we needed to do to get to this point. We're not going to push any farther. Maybe actually we'd have some combats here. We don't have blitz markers anymore, so that's kind of a problem. Yeah, if we try to make this happen, what, 8, 9, 10, 5 to 1. We'd lose a couple. Okay, we got a 1. All right, so we knock out these guys, and really effectively, Siam is done. We'd probably want to advance after combat, and then in the reserve movement, we'd probably start sending this guy, down, starting to head down here. We're going to reoccupy Singapore by the end of all this. We'll end up putting, a supply convoy in the Java Sea, and so we'll be able to, they'll move to here, have a port, then move to here, move here. They're going to get into Singapore by the end of the next turn. Going 1, 2, 1, 2. Maybe they won't get into Singapore, actually. That's annoying. Well, we'll worry about that later. I don't care. Basically, we know that actually, funny thing, we could probably figure out a way to do a naval invasion of Singapore later and take care of it, which we might just do it that way. That'd be funny. Really not that big a deal at this point. We can figure stuff out. So if the Western Allies are done, then it's really about the Soviets. And I'll probably adjust the camera for this, but I'll show you guys the aftermath of the Soviets going, because the Soviets are active, right? And their card activates, which is Red Banner Offensive, so they're going to get a blitz marker. They're going to get some stuff in their force pool. They're going to get some additional steps that they can deploy, which even right now, I wouldn't even say there's much to cover there, but let me run through a turn of Soviet actions, and we'll change the camera angle, and we'll kind of look and see what happens. Okay, here's what you can see after 2 turns. I've went ahead and just played through the last turn because I didn't see much reason to do much more. The Soviets got into Harbin. They also pushed down through into Korea, and really not much the Japanese could do to stop them or to strike back. And we eliminated some of the defenders. We pushed them back. The blitz marker helped. Overall, kind of a nice clean sweep. There's actually a point where I didn't even bother attacking some more because I didn't see a point, and we just got to the end. Over here, the Japanese actually repulsed the Russians, so there's that. But we're at the end, and just to kind of show where things are at, I was using some markers to help keep count here, but we're going to be at Allied Crusade 4 because we're at 13. So basically, the Allies have control of 16 Axis strategic hexes, 5 of those coming from bombing mainland Japan from bombers and our A-bombs, and then we have 11 other strategic hexes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or wait, hold on. Now, see, this is the problem. I get screwed up. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 10, 11. Plus the 5. So 16 The Japanese still control 3 axis or allied hexes 1, 2, and 3, and that comes out to be minus 13. Allied Crusade 4, not quite enough for an automatic victory, but a smashing good show. We ended up not taking Saigon. We didn't get it. I didn't roll good enough, so it just didn't happen. So yeah, there you go, guys. That's the end. And I've got some thoughts from a couple different angles. I'm going to let all of that kind of hit into the post-mortem, which will be the next video, which will be up here very shortly. So that was kind of a fun, that was a pretty fun run. I mean, it was a longer scenario, a fair number of turns, a lot of planning and careful shepherding of resources and convoys and support markers and fleets and battles, all to get to this end state, which I'm pretty happy with. So yeah, good run for those who stuck around and watched and tracked things the way through. Hope this was enjoyable. We'll hit the post-mortem next, so see you guys there. Take care. Keep gaming.